If you want to understand how the global economy works, you could spend years studying trade deficits, inflation metrics, and complex monetary policy. Or you could just buy a McDonald's Big Mac. It sounds ridiculous, but for nearly 40 years, the world's top economists have been using the Big Mac to measure the value of money across the world. They even have a formal name for it, Burger-nomics. Staring at a Big Mac to understand global finance feels a bit like asking a potato to explain quantum physics, which is, admittedly, a strange amount of responsibility to place on fast food. So, why do we do it? What the Big Mac Index is. This deeply unserious idea started in 1986. An editor at The Economist magazine named Pam Woodall wanted a funny, easy way to explain a massive economic concept to her readers. That concept is called purchasing power parity, which sounds like a spell an accountant would cast in Harry Potter.
Purchasing power parity! Rise!
But the idea behind it is actually very simple. A dollar should theoretically buy you the exact same amount of stuff no matter where you are in the world. The problem is, testing this in the real world is a nightmare. You can't compare a house in New York to an apartment in Paris. You can't compare a haircut in London to a haircut in Tokyo. The quality, the style, the materials, they're all entirely different. So Pam basically said, look, instead of looking at boring financial charts, let's just look at a Big Mac. Why a Big Mac? Because it is identical almost everywhere. It uses the exact same ingredients. But more importantly, to make that specific sandwich, a local McDonald's has to pay for local rent, local electricity, and local labor. So, a Big Mac isn't just a sandwich. It's a perfectly packaged, edible summary of a country's entire cost of living. It was supposed to be a joke, a lighthearted, slightly sarcastic way to make financial theory digestible, literally. But then, a funny thing happened. It worked. It worked so well that universities, global investors, and actual financial institutions started using it for real. Here is where the actual trick happens. Let's say a Big Mac costs $5 in the United States. Then you fly to France. You walk into a McDonald's and that exact same Big Mac costs €5. If the global economy made perfect sense, $5 should equal €5, which means $1 should be worth exactly €1. Let's call this the Big Mac exchange rate. But then you check the actual bank exchange rate on your phone, and the bank says $1 actually only gets you 80 cents. Wait, the Big Mac says your dollar is worth a full euro. The bank only gives you 80 cents. This tells economists a massive secret. The euro is overvalued against the dollar. The bank gives you less local money than the Big Mac says it should. Because of that, your dollar doesn't go as far, and everything in France is going to feel a bit more expensive to you. On the flip side, if you go to a country like Japan, the Big Mac exchange rate might tell you the yen is undervalued. The bank gives you way more local money than the Big Mac expects, which is why everything there suddenly feels incredibly cheap. Basically, the rule is simple. If a Big Mac costs more in dollars than it does back home, their currency is overvalued. If it costs less, it's undervalued. It's really that easy. But wait, if the math is that simple, does it really have to be a Big Mac? Theoretically, no. If the goal is just to find something identical, you could measure the global economy using almost anything. You could create the underwear index and compare the price of basic cotton briefs across 50 countries. In fact, over the years, The Economist and other researchers have tried to offer alternatives. They introduced the tall latte index using Starbucks, the iPad index, and even the Billy bookcase index using IKEA furniture, but people always criticize them. A Starbucks latte isn't a universally standard product everywhere. An iPad is heavily distorted by international shipping costs and tech taxes and tells you nothing about local labor. Which brings us right back to the beginning. The reason the Big Mac became the gold standard is simply because of how flawlessly average it is. As long as a product is exactly the same everywhere and requires local workers to put it together, you can theoretically use it to measure the world. So yes, you could use a pair of underwear, but the Big Mac is the one everyone agreed on.